Welcome back to this section of our class and this section of our recorded program together. In this section, we'll be talking about emotion. And by the way, all emotion means is energy in motion. It's right in the name. Most of us make a lot more of our emotions than we need to. The unique thing about emotion is that very often it is what either puts us into action or prevents us from acting. One of the wonderful things about this technique that we're learning here together is that instead of you being victim of your emotions, it's an opportunity for you to master your emotions. That's one of the things that happens as you use this technique. Now, many people worry as they do a technique like this, are they going to get boring? Is life going to become flat or blank? And what you'll notice as you use this program is the exact opposite happens. As you let go, as you release, you become more and more alive, because what we call our limiting or unwanted feelings or emotions are just on the surface. At the core, we have a tremendous amount of joy and light and love and happiness and effectiveness. So as you start to explore these with an open mind and heart, you'll discover that emotion can be your ally, and no emotion needs to be your master. You don't have to let the emotions decide anymore what you do or do not do. So if you haven't already, turn to your book to section 3, and I believe it's page 22, and we'll get started. What I'm going to do in this recording and in this section of the course is I'm going to go through the emotional states and describe them a little bit so you can get a little better sense of them. And also, at the end of this recording and at the end of this section of the program, we'll do a release together where we release on all the emotions one at a time. And by the way, if you're having a hard time getting in touch with your feelings or your emotions, don't worry about it. When I first started this program, I only released from the neck up. I had a very hard time getting in touch with any of my emotions. I was aware of my thoughts, but not my feelings or my emotions. So just do the best you can. Now, part of the value of these pages in your workbook and part of the value of this particular section of the course is it will help you get more and more in touch with the different emotional states. Now, these pages in the book are organized in a very particular fashion. What we've discovered is that there are 9 key emotional states. Now, you've probably heard other forms of organizing emotions before that may be similar, but this is the one that we use, that we find most effective. They're organized in a way that relates to their energy. So we start in apathy. In apathy, we have very little energy. We have almost no energy available for outward action. And as you move up the scale of energy or emotion, by the time you get to peace, you have all energy available, but at rest. Now, from the outside, these two emotional states can look very similar because there's very little outward action. When you're feeling peaceful, you feel like you can change anything you want in the world, but because it's all perfect the way it is, you have no need to. Whereas in apathy, you feel like there's nothing you can do about the world, so why even bother? So, in apathy, the mind is very noisy. There are so many conflicting thoughts and feelings that it's very difficult to get anything accomplished. It's actually our most negative state. And by the way, when I say negative, I just mean not productive as far as outward action. None of these emotions are really negative or positive. But the most limited state, maybe that's a better word to use, is apathy. Now, as you move up the scale, you move up to grief. Now, probably not many of you thought grief was up from anywhere before. But in grief, there's actually a little more energy. You're a little more able to do things in the world. Now, you probably still feel like you can't do it, but at least there's some hope that maybe someone can help you. As you move up even further into fear, what you'll discover is that there's even more energy. It's actually easier to get into action, although most action is still quite destructive. And the thinking is still very constricted in fear. What you're thinking about in fear is all the things that could possibly go wrong. And then, again, as we keep moving up in energy, we get into lust. Now, lust is the first energy where there's starting to be some constructive action. You may or may not move out in lust into constructive action, but at least you're motivated. And the lust energy can be very helpful because you can use it to motivate yourself letting go of the apathy, the grief, and the fear. Because in apathy, grief, and fear, very often it's very difficult to do anything at all. And your thoughts are very constricted and your energy is very constricted. In lust, it's the first feeling that many people would actually label as a positive feeling. And again, feelings or emotions are not positive or negative. You may also wonder in lust why you would want to let it go. Because to most of us, very often lust feels really good. The problem with lust is there's a feeling of I want it, but I can't have it. And because of that, there's a holdback still in lust. If you think about some of the things that you've lusted after, you know it's something that you think about a lot. And that can really still keep your mind very busy and active. And there's also a misnomer about wanting. We'll talk more about this later in the class, but want equates to lack. Would you rather want a new car or have a new car? Would you rather want more money or have more money? I think most of you would agree that you'd rather have more money than want it. So that's lust. Now again, a little higher energy is anger. And in anger, we're very often likely to strike out, but again, mostly in a destructive way because we're getting even. And our mind is still quite active and noisy. And it's still mostly negative or destructive action. So again, if you move up a little further in energy, you get into pride. Now in pride, there's something funny about pride in that very often we miss that. And also, the interesting thing about pride is we very often feel proud of even our other emotions. I'm sure you've met people who are proud of how apathetic they are, or proud of how sad they are, or proud of how fearful they are. So pride can color a lot of other emotions. But the problem with pride is it's the emotional state you go into after you've accomplished something. And that's not necessarily bad, except that most of us get lost there. You've probably all met people who are still proud of they're 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 years old, and they're still proud of the basketball game they won when they were 17. So it's not that there's anything wrong with pride, but it's a place that we don't want to get stuck in. And it also can be a blind spot for many people. We don't actually realize that we're in the pride. Now, when we move into courageousness, this is the first energy, this is the first emotion, where there's the outward action starts to be more and more positive. When you get, in fact, solidly in the center of courageousness, your actions are 50% positive and 50% negative. As you go deeper into courageousness, by the time you get to the top of the courageous energy, your actions are mostly positive. So everything below courageousness, the actions are very often wasted energy, wasted time, a lot of thinking, and a lot of struggling unnecessarily. But by the time you get into courageousness, you're able to really be more effective in life. And then as you keep letting go, you move up into the energy of acceptance, where things are okay as they are. If you remember the last time you were deeply in love with something or someone, or you were just really in the moment, like watching a sunset or in a really good movie, very often you're in that state of acceptance. And as you keep letting go, you move up into the state of peace. Now in peace, again, you have all energy available, but it's at rest. It's not in action. And because of that, you very often don't outwardly act, but inwardly you have the feeling that you can do whatever you want. You can have whatever you want. And it's easy for you to move back down into the lower energy levels of acceptance or courageousness if you actually want to accomplish something. So there's a lot of freedom in peace. And if you look at the very end of this section, there's a chart that you can actually spend some time filling in. And at the top of that chart is two words, freedom and imperturbability. That's what's left over when you let go of all the emotional states. The other thing you'll notice, if you turn to that section now, and by the way, if you're listening to this in a car, you may just want to refer back to this when you're at a point when you can look in your workbook. So on page 32 and 33 of your workbook, at the very end of this section, there's a 2-page spread that is empty. It's for you to fill in at your convenience. But to review what we were talking about, as you use this technique, as you use letting go, you'll discover that whatever emotional state you're in at the moment, as you let go, you'll have a tendency to move towards the right-hand side of this chart. In fact, if you held the book on the side with peace at the bottom, we're actually uncovering our courageousness, acceptance, and peace every time we use the method. And it's the energy of courageousness that allows us to let go. It's the I can energy. Every time you ask yourself the question, could I let go of this? Or could I welcome this? What you're doing is you're tapping your courageous energy. And that's what allows releasing to be as powerful as it is. If you hold this chart with courageousness, acceptance, and peace at the bottom, as you use the method, you're digging deeper, deeper, deeper into the core of who you are, letting go of these layers of limitation that you've put on the top. So as you let go, as you use the method, you'll find yourself moving more and more to the right-hand side of this chart. And it's not always linear. Sometimes you move back and forth. But the more you let go, the more you'll discover that. And the other thing is, just a reminder, we've talked about this before, and we'll talk about this more later in the program. The reason that we also release the courageousness, acceptance, and peace is that every time you let go of a good feeling, you'll discover that it gets better. In fact, the more you let go of good feelings, the more it will be easy to let go of the negative feeling. So why don't we do some work together now? Allow yourself to sit back and focus inside. And unless you're driving in a car, it's okay to keep your eyes open or closed, however you prefer. I obviously don't recommend that you close your eyes if you're in an automobile. And remember, if you're having a hard time getting in touch with a particular emotion, that's okay. Just do the best you can. So allow yourself to think back to a time where you felt apathetic, where you felt like you couldn't accomplish, you couldn't do, you felt, I can't. And as best you can, could you allow yourself to get in touch with that feeling or emotion right now? Every time you listen to this recording, it will probably get easier for you to get in touch with all the different emotional levels. And could you allow yourself to welcome this apathy feeling as best you can? Would you? When? And throughout this process together, if you're not sure, just let yourself feel whatever you're feeling in this moment. It's okay. Now allow yourself to feel whatever apathy you're feeling in the moment, or whatever feeling you're feeling, if you're having a hard time getting in touch with the apathy. And could you let it go? Would you? When? And take another look inside and just allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling in this moment. And could you let it go? Would you? When? Now let's move up to grief. Again, I know it's sometimes funny to think grief is up from anywhere. Allow yourself as best you can to think of a situation that makes you feel sad, where you feel regret, where you feel lonely, where you feel remorse. And could you just allow yourself to feel that feeling as best you can? Could you allow it to be here? And then could you welcome it? Could you really welcome it fully as best you can? Would you welcome it? When? And again, allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling in this moment. And as best you can, if you can, allow yourself to get in touch with grief or sadness. And could you let it go? Would you? When? And again, allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling in this moment. And could you allow it to release? Would you? When? And now let's move up to fear. Allow your energy to open a little more and see if you can think of a situation that makes you feel afraid, where you felt scared, threatened. And could you allow yourself to welcome that feeling? Would you? When? Again, allow yourself to become aware of whatever you're aware of in this moment, whatever feeling. And as best you can, allow yourself to be in touch with fear. It may be getting a little more difficult as you welcome it. And could you let it go? Would you? When? Take another look inside and just let yourself feel whatever you're feeling in this moment. And could you let it go? Would you? When? And now let's move up to the energy of wanting, lust. I have to have it. I need it. I want it. And if you need to, think of a specific instance or a specific thing in your life that stirs up that wanting or that lust. And could you allow yourself to welcome that feeling? Would you? When? And again, allow yourself to feel whatever lust or whatever feeling you're feeling in this moment. And then could you let it go? Would you? When? Take another look inside and just let yourself feel whatever you're feeling in this moment. And then could you let it go? Would you? When? And now let's move up to anger. Allow yourself to get in touch with something that bothers you, that makes you feel angry or mad. And again, just do the best you can here. And could you just allow yourself to feel this feeling? And could you welcome it? Would you? When? Again, allow yourself to get as in touch with anger as you can. If you need to, you can think of the same situation or another situation that stirs up your anger. And could you let it go? Would you? When? Again, as best you can, allow yourself to get in touch with any anger that you may be feeling in this moment. And if you're having a hard time getting in touch with it, just let yourself feel whatever you are feeling. And could you let it go? Would you? When? Now let's open our energy up even more into pride. Think of a situation in your life that stirs up pride, something that maybe you're proud of. And remember, the pride we're talking about here is not pride in your country or pride in a job well done, because that really doesn't get in the way. But the kind of pride where you get locked into, that holds you back, that's the one we're letting go of here. So as best you can, allow yourself to get in touch with your pride. The feeling of pride about how special you are, or better than someone or something else. And could you allow yourself to welcome that feeling? Would you? When? Again, do the best you can to become in touch with your feeling of pride. And could you let it go? Would you? When? And take another look inside and just allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling in this moment. And then could you set it free? Could you let it go? Would you? When? Now let's allow ourselves to open and relax even further, and as best we can, get in touch with our courageousness, our feeling of I can accomplish, I can do, I can have. And could you just allow yourself to feel this feeling or this emotion as best you can? And then could you welcome it? Could you allow it to be here? Would you? When? And so you don't have to worry about it. In this section, when we're releasing on the courageousness, acceptance, and peace, the releasing we'll do will be just on welcoming, just allowing it. So you can just allow yourself to let go in that way. Remember, welcoming is one of the ways we let go. And very often we're a little hesitant to just drop our courageousness, or our acceptance, or our peace, although that's certainly a good thing to experiment with. So could you allow yourself to welcome your courageousness? Would you? When? Again, allow yourself to open to the energy of I can, of courageousness as best you can. And could you welcome it? Would you? When? And let's open even further and go a little deeper into the core of who we are. And as best you can, to think or become aware of something that reminds you of acceptance, something that you feel loving towards, accepting of, or just open to that energy as best you can. It's kind of a warm, open energy. And could you allow yourself to welcome that accepting energy? Would you? When? And again, just allow yourself to become aware of acceptance as best you can. That sense that all is well. And could you allow yourself to welcome it into your awareness? Would you? When? And just allow yourself to become aware of whatever feeling you're feeling in this moment. And could you just allow it to be, welcome it fully? Would you? And let's go just a touch further into the core of who we are, closer to our true essence. And could you allow yourself to become aware of peace, of stillness, of quietness? Remember, just do the best you can. And could you allow yourself to welcome the feeling of peace? Would you? When? And again, as best you can, allow yourself to get in touch with that quiet, peaceful energy. The energy of all is well and everything is at rest. And could you welcome it? Would you? When? Take just one more look inside and just allow yourself, as best you can, to just rest as that peaceful energy that's always at your core. No matter what other feeling floats into awareness. And could you just let it be? Could you welcome it? Would you? When? Now, every time that you listen to this process, this particular recording, you'll find yourself being able to get more and more in touch with these different emotional states. And remember, they're just energy. They're not real and they're not who you are.